In my family, success was measured in dollars and degrees. My brother, David, was a surgeon. His success was measured in lives saved and a seven-figure income. My sister, Anna, was a corporate lawyer. Her success was measured in billable hours and partnership tracks. My parents measured their own success in the reflected glory of their two brilliant, high-achieving children. And then there was me. I was the family historian, the archivist, the one with the useless history degree. My currency was dust and forgotten stories. My success was measured in the quiet thrill of finding a faded photograph, of deciphering a 19th century letter, of piecing together the puzzle of our past. To my family, I wasn't a professional. I was a hobbyist. I was the quaint, impractical one they loved but never quite respected. They thought my passion was worthless. They had no idea it was about to become the only thing that could save them. My sanctuary has always been the past. While my siblings were acing their MCATs and LSATs, I was spending my weekends in the climate-controlled silence of the university archives, the smell of old paper and leather in the air. I loved the feel of a brittle, 100-year-old document in my gloved hands. I loved the rush of discovery, of connecting a name in a dusty ledger to a face in a faded photograph. I was a detective, and my crime scenes were the forgotten corners of my own family's history. My family found this amusing. At holiday dinners, the question was always the same. "So, Sophie," my father would begin, a patronizing but well-meaning smile, "still playing with those old letters? Found any pirates in the family tree yet?" David, my brother, would chime in, a surgeon's precision in his condescension. "You know, Soph, the hospital is always hiring records clerks. It's not too late to turn that hobby into a real job." Anna, the lawyer, was the most direct. "I just don't get it," she'd say, swirling the wine in her glass. "All that time and money on a degree just to look at old stuff? It's not practical." I'd just smile and nod. Trying to explain the value of my work to them was like trying to describe the color blue to someone who could only see in grayscale. They didn't have the language for it. Their world was the present, a relentless, forward-moving machine of ambition and achievement. My world was the foundation upon which theirs was built, a foundation they had never bothered to inspect. The only one who ever truly understood was my great-great-uncle Theodore, or at least I felt like he did. He was the family's original black sheep, a man from the early 20th century who was dismissed in our family lore as an eccentric failure. While his brothers were building fortunes in manufacturing, Theodore was a speculator, a dreamer who was always chasing some wild, impractical idea. Years ago, while I was digitizing a box of his old correspondence, I found a letter. It was written in a messy, enthusiastic scrawl to his sister. Most of it was the usual family gossip, but one paragraph had a paperclip on it, as if to mark its importance. He wrote, "Everyone thinks I have lost my mind, but I have used the last of my inheritance to purchase a large tract of utterly worthless, rocky land in the northern county. They see it as a fool's errand. I see it as a speculation on the future of energy. A man must sometimes plant a seed in a place where no one else believes a tree can grow." I remember being fascinated by it. I did a cursory search of the county records back then, but hit a dead end. It was just another forgotten story, another piece of the puzzle. I digitized the letter, filed it away in my digital archive under Theodore, correspondence, and didn't think much more about it. It was just a quaint anecdote about the family dreamer. I was the new family dreamer, and like Theodore, I was about to find out what it felt like when the world decided your dreams were worthless. The crisis came without warning, the way all the worst ones do. My father had spent his life building a successful boutique manufacturing business. It wasn't on the scale of my siblings' careers, but it was a source of immense pride and the foundation of our family's comfortable life. One Monday morning, he called an emergency family meeting. We gathered in the formal dining room, a room reserved for holidays and bad news. The air was thick with a tense, unfamiliar silence. My father, a man I had always seen as an unshakable oak, looked small, defeated. He explained that a key international supplier had gone bankrupt, a new competitor had undercut his prices, and a major client had pulled their contract. It was a perfect storm. The business he had built over 40 years was insolvent, and worse, to keep it afloat, he had taken out a series of high-risk loans, using the family home as collateral. They were on the verge of losing everything. The room was a pressure cooker of panic. My mother was silently crying into a napkin. Anna, the lawyer, was pacing, talking about Chapter 11 and liquidation. And then all eyes turned to David, the surgeon, the golden child, the one who had truly made it. He was the family's hero, our safety net. My mother looked at him, her voice a desperate whisper. "David, can you help us? Alone, just to get us through this." David, who had just returned from a ski trip in Aspen, cleared his throat. He looked around the table, not with empathy, but with the cool, detached gaze of a doctor assessing a terminal case. He said, "I can't. I've run the numbers. The business is a sinking ship. Loaning you money now would be a bad investment. It would be irresponsible of me to risk my own family's financial security on something with no chance of a return." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. He wasn't just saying no, he was delivering a verdict. He had weighed his family in the balance and found them wanting. The hero had refused the call. And then, in the middle of that devastating silence, I felt their eyes on me. All of them. My mother, my father, my sister, my brother, they looked at me. And it wasn't a look of hope. It wasn't a look that said, "Sophie, do you have any ideas?" It was a look of pure, unadulterated pity. A look that said, "Well, you're certainly no help." In that moment, I wasn't their daughter or their sister. I was a ghost at the table, a useless, irrelevant spectator to the real, important tragedy of their financial lives. My entire life, my entire passion, my entire field of expertise was so worthless to them that in their moment of greatest need, it didn't even occur to them that I could be a part of the solution. They had written me off completely. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, the weight of their pity pressing down on me. And in that silence, a forgotten memory flickered in the back of my mind. A dusty, digitized letter, a foolish dreamer, and a speculation on the future of energy. That night, I didn't go to bed. I went to my sanctuary, my home office, a small room lined with archival boxes, bookshelves, and the hum of my powerful scanner. This was the one place I felt truly competent, truly myself. While my family was drowning in the present, I decided to go digging in the past. I logged into my personal digital archive, a massive, meticulously organized database of my family's history. I bypassed the folders of photographs and journals. I went straight to the correspondence files. I typed in a single name, Theodore. There it was, the letter from 1932. I read the paragraph again, but this time the words weren't quaint. They were a breadcrumb trail and a large tract of utterly worthless, rocky land in the northern county. My historian's brain kicked into gear. The rage and hurt from the family meeting was gone, replaced by the electric thrill of the hunt. This was no longer about saving them. It was about proving them wrong. It was about proving my own worth in the only language they understood. I spent the next 2 hours on a deep dive into the county's online records portal. It was a mess of poorly scanned documents and archaic search functions, a place that would have been an impenetrable fortress to my siblings. But to me, it was home. I was looking for a deed, a property record, anything with Theodore's name on it from that era. At 2 a.m., I found it. A grainy, digitized copy of a property deed from 1932. The legal description was almost unreadable, a string of archaic surveying terms. But the names were clear. Theodore's name as the buyer, and the name of a local ranching family as the seller. And there was no record of it ever being sold again. My heart started to pound. Was it possible? Could the family still own this land, completely unaware? The next step was to find out what this worthless rocky land actually was. I cross-referenced the property description with old county maps. Then I overlaid those maps with modern geological surveys from the State University's online database. And then I saw it. Theodore's fool's errand was a 500-acre parcel of land situated directly in the heart of what geologists now called the Hartwell Shale Formation, an area that for the last decade had been the epicenter of a massive natural gas boom. My great-great-uncle, the eccentric failure, the family joke, hadn't been a fool. He had been a visionary. He had planted a seed 100 years ago, and it had grown into a forest of unimaginable value. And my family, in their relentless pursuit of the future, had forgotten to ever look at the roots. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place at 4 a.m. I found the probate records from when Theodore passed away. Childless and unmarried, his will had left all his assets, including any real estate holdings, to his siblings, our direct ancestors. The land had been passed down, forgotten, a line item in a dusty ledger for generations. It was still ours. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the monitor illuminating my face. My useless history degree, my quaint hobby, had just uncovered a family lottery ticket, and I was the only one holding it. I thought about my brother's cold clinical assessment, a bad investment. I smiled. I was about to propose the investment of a lifetime. I didn't tell them. Not at first. For a week, I lived with the secret, a quiet, humming power in the center of my chest. I let them sit in their despair. I let them listen to my sister's frantic calls with bankruptcy lawyers. I let my brother continue to lecture them about their fiscal irresponsibility. And while they were panicking, I was working. I was no longer an archivist. I was a strategist. I used my research skills to compile a complete, irrefutable dossier proving our family's ownership of the land. The original deed, the chain of title through the probate records, the modern property tax assessments, which were, hilariously, almost zero, since the land was classified as undeveloped scrubland. Then I shifted from historian to business agent. I researched the major energy corporations operating in the Hartwell Shale. I found the name of the head of land acquisition at the biggest player in the region, a company called Northridge Energy. I drafted an email. It was professional, concise, and confident. I introduced myself as the designated representative of the estate that owned the 500-acre parcel. I attached the core proof of ownership documents, and I stated that we were now open to discussing a mineral rights leasing agreement. His reply came in less than an hour. He was, to put it mildly, extremely interested. The next 2 weeks were a blur of phone calls and emails. I was suddenly negotiating with high-powered corporate lawyers and geologists. They were stunned that this prime parcel had been sitting dormant for so long. I used my research into past leasing deals in the area to negotiate from a position of strength. They made an offer, I made a counteroffer. We settled on a number that made my hand shake as I typed it. A massive 7-figure signing bonus, plus a hefty 25% royalty on all future production. I didn't agree on the phone. I had them draw up the final, legally binding contract. They FedExed it to me overnight. The next Sunday, I called another family meeting. The mood was funereal. My parents looked like they had aged 10 years. My sister was pale and drawn. My brother was lecturing them about the importance of liquidating their remaining assets immediately. I let them talk for a few minutes. Then I cleared my throat. "I think I might have a solution," I said quietly. They all turned to look at me with that same familiar pity. My father sighed. "Sophie, honey, that's sweet, but unless you've got a winning lottery ticket in your pocket, I don't think your old books are going to help us now." I didn't say a word. I just reached into my briefcase and pulled out the contract from Northridge Energy. I slid it to the center of the dining room table. I've been conducting some research into the family's portfolio of historical assets, and I seem to have uncovered a previously unrealized source of significant revenue. I watched their faces as they read the first page. The confusion, the dawning disbelief. I saw my brother's eyes scan down to the signing bonus, and his jaw literally dropped. He looked up at me, his face a mask of utter, dumbfounded shock. What is this?" he stammered. "That," I said, "is our great-great-uncle Theodore, the eccentric failure. It seems his speculation on the future of energy finally paid off." I proceeded to walk them through the entire story. The letter, the research, the negotiation. I laid out the facts with the cool, calm precision of a historian delivering a lecture. When I was finished, there was a long, profound silence. The titans of the present, the doctor, the lawyer, the banker, were staring, completely humbled, at the quiet historian who had saved them. My brother just kept shaking his head, muttering, "I don't understand. How did you even find this?" I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. I said, "It's my job. I read the history you all thought was worthless." The contract was signed, the financial crisis was averted, but the real victory wasn't the money. It was the look in their eyes, the dawning, undeniable respect. Last week, my father officially named me the manager of the new family trust, the one established to handle the royalties from the land lease. My impractical passion has become my family's most valuable asset. They see me differently now. They listen when I talk. They ask for my opinion. But I know the truth. They didn't change. The world they valued just got a lot bigger. It now includes the past that I was the only one who cared enough to preserve. The real family legacy wasn't the money they almost lost. It was the story I was the only one who bothered to read. And it turns out it was a story with a very happy ending.